Hello. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the already last talk of this semester's lecture series. I'm Robin, and I'm just quickly going to introduce today's speaker. Stephan Fundinger is a psychotherapist who did his training in integrative Gestalt therapy in
Zurich.
In Zurich.
Yeah.
Okay. And now he has his clinic here in Zurich, and he offers psychotherapy, but he also offers psychedelic-assisted therapy. Additionally, he also is the vice president of Even Rave, which is a non-profit that promotes harm reduction. I'm really not good with that. And he also has an integration circle, which he hosts regularly here in Zurich, pretty much every month. So in the integration circle, people meet and they can share their psychedelic experiences, and they get support from him and also from the other peers that are in the circle. And I've been there a couple times. I can really recommend it, even if you don't have an experience you want to share. I think every time I was there, I learned something new about either psychedelic experiences or even about myself. So it was always worth it. Today, though, he will talk about psychedelic-assisted therapy with a focus on Gestalt therapy. And Gestalt therapy, I've read from Stanislav Grof that it is a useful tool in psychedelic therapy sessions. I have to admit, though, I really don't have a clue what it is. And as I've heard from my friends who actually study psychology, they don't have either. So I think it's going to be a very informative talk today. And without further ado, please welcome Stephan Fundinger.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yeah, good. So to be honest, I'm a Gestalt therapist, but I'm also not quite sure what Gestalt therapy is. So I'll just give it a try. Right. So first, the presentation overview. I will start talking about the Gestalt therapy first, and afterwards a little bit about psychedelic-assisted therapy in Switzerland. And there I will present the case study, and let's see if we have time to talk about the role of touch and music and also integration. Okay, so who of the audience wants to become a psychotherapist or already is a psychotherapist here? Okay, yeah, okay, about half, okay, yeah. Psychology students in general here? Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, quite a lot. So it will be especially interesting for, I would say, psychology or medicine students and people who are just interested in psychotherapy in general. So, okay, what is Gestalt therapy? And you may, if you know German, you may know the word Gestalt, and you may think, Gestalt, does it come from gestalten, basteln, like creating things, designing things, crafting things, like this or this. But no, it's not. It has nothing to do with crafting, to be honest. It comes from Gestalt psychology, and it's kind of like a study on perception. Gestalt means whole, form, shape, or pattern. And Gestalt therapy is based on this Gestalt psychology. And I brought you a few examples to look at and to kind of show you what that means, this study on perception. When you look at this, what do you see? A lot of people would say, I see a cube, right? But when you look really closely, it's not a cube. There are only these black dots and these white lines, but the human mind wants to kind of complete the Gestalt, right? It wants to continue from one object to another. When something looks incomplete to the human mind, a human wants to kind of close it. And that's kind of the core of Gestalt therapy. Every human wants to resolve this unfinished business and wants to give it a narrative. I have another example here. When you look at this chess pattern, when you look at A and B, are they similar or not? Are they the same or are they a different color? It kind of looks like they're not the same, right? But if you kind of combine it, then you see A and B is the same color. So it's similar to the example before. We want to look at entire patterns and not only at the individual objects, components. And I'll show you a last example. So what do you see here? Dolphins, right? Yeah. Oh, what else did you see? Okay. I will talk just shortly about the Gestalt therapy history. It was developed in the 1940s by these three people, Fritz Perls, Laura Perls, and Paul Goodman. And Fritz Perls was originally trained in psychoanalysis, but he thought for him it was too abstinent-oriented. Yeah, the therapist doesn't take an active role in the therapy, and he wanted to take a more active role, a more authentic, personal role. He wants to he wanted to see the therapist as an instrument in the therapy, and that's why he wanted to kind of grow and go away a bit from psychoanalysis. So it was influenced by all these things, also Eastern philosophies, as I said, Gestalt psychology, existentialism, phenomenology, and also theater and creative arts. Especially Laura Perls focused on this creative part of therapy. I will talk about these things later on a little bit. So what is Gestalt therapy? It's so difficult to kind of talk about Gestalt therapy. Usually people, a Gestalt therapist always tell you, oh, you have to experience Gestalt therapy. You just can't explain it. It's similar to psychedelics. We can talk about psychedelics or we can take psychedelics, right? Yeah. And I think Gestalt therapy is similar to that. But I tried to kind of narrow it down. So it's a humanistic approach. Maybe you heard from the person-centered psychotherapy from Carl Rogers. That's also a humanistic approach. Gestalt is also a humanistic approach. And one of the main topics or principles is a Gestalt therapist works in the here and now. So oftentimes in a therapy, you rarely talk about, what happened in the past. Of course, it's important what happened to you in your childhood, but you always come back to the here and now, what happens between you and the client. What do you see in the client on a phenomenological level? It's focused on to bring these emotions out in the here and now. It focuses on the mind, body, and the spiritual sphere. And it's also not, let's say, compared to CBT, it's not that symptom-oriented. It's more focused on the person, and it's what Irvin Yalom said about psychotherapy, you can't just put some kind of manual onto a client. It's about, in a way, you have to create, for every client, you need to create an own psychotherapy. Yeah? And I think Gestalt is kind of really made for that because it's so flexible. So it's process-oriented, similar to the here and now principle, what is happening at the moment. It's experimental, so we do a lot of experiments during therapy. One of the most famous experiment is the chair technique. Some psychotherapists, of course, you heard of this. It's when you put a chair next to a client and then you imagine, let's say, your father sitting there, or let's say an inner critic. And then when you imagine this, you go into a dialogue with this imaginative person. And with this technique, it really is, it's quite confrontative, but it really focuses on the emotion and can bring up difficult topics, and it helps to not only cognitively understand why you have maybe problems in life. It brings it back to the body and the emotional level. It's also very focused on the therapist-client relationship. And yeah, like I said, it's really experience-oriented. And it's not about changing someone. It's more about kind of accepting the client who he is. It's like the Carl Rogers said, the curious paradox is that when someone accepts him or herself, then real change can happen. Okay. Oh, maybe. Okay. I know it's quite hard to understand all these principles. That's why I brought you a funny story. It's from Jorge Bucay, and so there's a client who has a really embarrassing problem. Yeah, he poops his pants, and he went to all the doctors, and they told him, "Oh, it's nothing somatic. It has something to do with the psyche." Yeah. And there are 3 endings to it. So the first ending, he goes to a psychoanalyst, and he goes there for about 5 years, and then he meets a friend, and the friend asks, "Hey, how are you doing? How's therapy?" And he says, "Oh, it's great, it's fabulous." And the friend asks, "Okay, did you stop pooping your pants now?" And he said, "Oh, no, I didn't stop, but I know why I poop my pants now." And the second ending is, he goes to a CBT therapist, cognitive behavioral therapist, and after 6 weeks, he meets his friend, and again, the friend asks, "Oh, how are you doing? How's therapy?" And he says, "Oh, it's great. It's really fabulous." And then he asks him, "Oh, did you stop pooping your pants?" "Oh, no, I didn't stop, but now I wear rubber pants." And the third ending is, he goes to a Gestalt therapist, and after 6 months, he meets his friend, and his friend asks again, "Hey, how are you doing?" He says, "Great, therapy is great." And the friend asks, "Oh, did you stop pooping your pants?" And he says, "No, but I don't care anymore." So in a way, it's about changing your perception on these things. So now I want to show you a demonstration from Bob Resnick. He's a famous Gestalt therapist. He also trained with Fritz Perls. I hope everything works with the sound. Wait, I already have it open.
wanted to talk about my relationships with women. I feel now and usually like I'm squeezed, and I don't like to feel that.
So what do you know about each of them?
Usually I stop my tears. I stop such kind of feelings.
I notice when you say those things about you, you don't look at me. So experiment in saying that to me and see if it changes for you.
I feel lonely. Maybe more free when I'm lonely.
I feel a little bit of sadness when you say that, and a little bit of gladness that you say it to me.
When you said that, and I looked at your eyes. I felt some moment that it's like I come home.
I know the music is quite cheesy, but I would have had to buy the whole sequence, and it would cost me about 60 francs. So sorry, I'm a bit cheap though. But as you can see, the therapist stayed in the here and now, and he told him or asked him or said to him, "Oh, when you tell me these things, you look away." And then he did this experiment in telling him, "Okay, please, can you repeat this? Can you tell this to me that you feel lonely?" And these are really popular Gestalt therapy techniques. Okay. So I shortly wanted to look at the popular psychotherapy method for psychedelic-assisted therapy and kind of compare it to Gestalt therapy. Maybe you heard of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and I will just shortly talk to you about this, also with an example. So it's about accepting life experiences and emotions, because if you fight your own emotions, it's kind of distressing, right? And it's about, let's say, I'll give you an example. When you are anxious meeting your parents or your family or the parents of your loved one, you kind of say to you, just just accept that you're anxious rather than pushing it away, because when you try to push anxiety away, usually it gets bigger and bigger, right? It's also about cognitive diffusion, so distancing yourself from your thoughts. And when we stay kind of with the family topic, when let's say you've experienced when you were little that you got this feeling from your parents that you're not good enough, and you're never good enough, then you might say, you might say, "Oh, I have a thought of feeling not good enough." It's kind of like distancing yourself from these things. Being present, that's similar to a Gestalt, right? Self as context. So similar to cognitive diffusion, you can say to yourself, I am not the anxiety, I'm the one noticing the anxiety. And also it's about values. So when we stick to the example of the family again, maybe you have the value of really having this family connection again, and that's really important to you. And you've even through psychedelic-assisted therapy, you can find this value inside of you. And in the end, the committed action, right? So if you say family is a big value for you, then you should also prioritize meeting your family, right? So when we look at Gestalt therapy, so ACT has the here and now aspect of it, the process-oriented, and also kind of the not changing someone, this accepting of your own feelings. What Gestalt therapy additionally adds is I think the body part and the spiritual part. Okay. Now we'll make a case for Gestalt therapy. So in Gestalt therapy, we talk about awareness, and in CBT, it's often about mindfulness. And in the end, it's kind of like the same thing, right? We mean the same thing, but yeah, I mean, in Gestalt therapy, this awareness principle has been there for maybe 70 years or so, right? And I think what CBT has is that CBT is really adaptable, and they kind of taking a lot of things from other therapy schools. But I think it's important to also look at what let's say, the other schools have kind of brought into this psychotherapy world. It's also putting the emphasis on the current experience. And on a psychedelic, oftentimes you are always in the here and now, right? If you're not in the here and now, you're overwhelmed. You can't function like in a normal mind state. You have to observe what comes up, and in Gestalt therapy, you really train that. You train the client to be in the here and now and see what comes up in every second. And you do a lot of experiments, and with these experiments, you put the client in a vulnerable state, right? And I think it can be similar to a psychedelic state where someone's really opened up, and these patients are already kind of trained to be in this vulnerable state, and I think that's really helpful when you do psychedelic-assisted therapy. And you focus on emotion, body, and the spirituality, especially during a psychedelic therapy session. Oftentimes some bodily sensation comes up, and with Gestalt therapy, you kind of focus on this bodily sensation and then try to find out, what does this bodily sensation mean? Oh, you have a stomach ache. What does it mean? And then you may try to kind of focus on, does any emotion come up, or does any images come up when you go into this stomach ache? And you kind of switching to these different sensations, and that's really helpful if you do psychedelic-assisted therapy. And you also do a lot of inner parts work. So similar to, maybe you heard of IFS, the internal family systems. You also in a psychedelic state, you are more in contact with these maybe fragmented parts in yourself, and then as a Gestalt therapist, you try to kind of bring them together again. I mean, even chair work, what I explained earlier, is kind of like inner parts work, and oftentimes you maybe put on 3 or 4 chairs in the therapy session and talk with all the parts in it. And these things help not only the therapist but also the client to kind of reflect better on these psychedelic states and kind of also navigate better in these states. We also do a lot of imagination techniques, and these can be really, really helpful also during a psychedelic-assisted therapy. I will show you later in the case I will present to you. And also the flexibility and the creativity. So during psychedelic experiences, oftentimes symbolism or these metaphors, this imagery comes up, right? And usually with Gestalt, you love to work with this imagery and with these symbols. And you can take out the chair again and put, I don't know, this tree you've experienced on this chair, and you can go into a dialogue with this tree and see what happens. And that's really, really, I think, really helpful for psychedelic-assisted therapy. And also this psychodrama. I don't know if you heard of psychodrama. It's also a psychotherapy school where they do a lot of role play. And in Gestalt therapy, you also do a lot of role play. And for chair work, that's just amazing. Yeah. And as a last argument why Gestalt therapy is just really well suited for psychedelic-assisted therapy, I'll show you this picture. Maybe you recognize these guys. So that's Fritz Perls on the right, and this is Stan Grof. And they did a lot of work together, and when you read Stan Grof's work, you also see some influences of Gestalt therapy in his work. So I will talk shortly about psychedelic-assisted therapy in Switzerland. There are a lot of experienced people in the audience, so I won't go too deeply into this topic. So you can see me here holding MDMA in my hands. It was the first time I held a legal MDMA in my hands, let's say, and I was really excited, and as you can see. And so in Switzerland we have this something called compassionate use or limited use. People can have this psychedelic-assisted treatment with MDMA, LSD, or psilocybin, but there needs to be some kind of indication. It needs to be treatment resistance. That means the patient at least need to try at least 2 antidepressants and also several psychotherapy modes. And then a psychiatrist or a medical doctor can apply at the BAG, and he can get a permit per patient for a year and a substance. So you can't just be a psychedelic-assisted therapist and give psychedelics to everyone. You need to kind of do it for every individual. Like I said, MDMA, LSD, and psilocybin. And application has to be made by a physician, and it's definitely good if he is also a member of the SEPT. Helena probably talked about it, or Heiner, who was in the audience. This is this organization who's the Schweizerische Ärztegesellschaft für psycholytische Therapie in German. And there's also it's quite costly, this therapy. So you have to, usually you have to pay the substance yourself, and also mostly 1 or 2 therapists are with you the whole time, yeah, like 7, 8, 12 hours. So it's quite costly therapy. And today I will talk a little bit about MDMA therapy. So what are the indications for psychedelic-assisted therapy? I will be a bit fast and jump through this. So for MDMA, it's usually really helpful with anxiety disorders, trauma, eating disorders, and also autism. Yeah, I haven't heard of a lot of cases where they gave people with autism MDMA, but I can imagine that it's really helpful for the social aspect to become maybe more empathetic, right? So, okay. MDMA, you probably all know the substance. I would guess a lot of people have tried it here, yeah? And, but maybe, what does it do? It's an empathogen. It's, that means it's kind of helps with the emotional openness, and it's an entactogen, so it intensifies touch. It's stimulating and relaxing at the same time. That's, I think, it's really interesting because it's a stimulant, right? But it's also, it works on the serotonin level that helps you to be relaxed. And it's also an anxiolytic. Like I said, the connection to emotions is enhanced, and it's, I think, in my opinion, it's great for trauma therapy. Although, as you may have heard, the FDA in the USA didn't approve MDMA as a therapy for PTSD. What's really sad, but I still think it's a great way to do trauma therapy. So, what does the setting look like? This is a picture from the Johns Hopkins University. This is Bill Richards here sitting. And so what we did is an individual setting with 2 therapists in a living room atmosphere. As you can see, it's not that clinical, right? It has a rose and also a painting. And of course, we played music and we used touch as well. And colorful sheets, I will talk about that shortly. So what I find really useful is this. This is from my colleague Peter Oehen and Wolf Mirko Weinreich. You have heard of probably set and setting, and this takes it a bit further and sees the therapist as a collective part and not as a setting. And I really like this this map. Okay. So let's talk about this patient. I did MDMA therapy with a good friend of mine, a physician. It's I think now it's about a year ago we did this. And to protect her identity, I changed a couple of things. So she's 40 years old. She has ADHD and social anxiety and depressive mood. And one of her main problems is this psychosomatic pain. Yeah, she had a lot of times she felt pain in her face and had a lot of migraines and headaches. And in her past, she had an eating disorder, and she's really has this high sensitivity, which may come from the ADHD, and a lot of attachment trauma. And because she had a younger sister with Down syndrome, and she often had to take care of her, and there's this parentification that happened, and a really difficult family dynamic. And she had a long medical history, and she also had OCD in her youth. So what did we do for preparation? We did the psychoeducation, several therapy sessions before. So she was a client of my friends, but I was, let's say, maybe 3 sessions before we did the substance sessions. I also kind of tried to build some kind of therapeutic alliance with her, the relationship building, and we also have to decide which substance. And for her, she never tried any substance, and for us it was clear that MDMA would be really helpful, especially for this attachment trauma. And also for the social anxiety, of course, yeah. So, okay. Now I come back to the sheets, right? So we put blue sheets there, yeah. We did it also in a living room atmosphere, and I think these blue sheets had a really big effect, because so it took nearly an hour till she felt any effects, and but then at some point it just kind of exploded, and she was again by this lake. Yeah, maybe the blue sheets influenced her to go to this lake, and she was about 6 years old at that lake, and she told us, oh, she was at that lake every summer when she was little with her parents, and she felt so carefree there. And but at some point, this big black cloud came up, and she was really scared and didn't know what that meant. And we tried to figure out, oh, what does this big black cloud mean? And it was so, it felt kind of she was in danger, and she just couldn't put it away. And so we tried to do different imagination techniques. Okay, maybe you can go into this situation as an adult, yeah, helping this 6-year-old child out with this black cloud. And she tried, but it never worked. And at some point she realized, oh, my older brother can help me. And she put her older brother into these situations, and he could just kind of throw this black cloud away, and she felt really free. And we found out this black cloud was school, yeah. And it was because she was 6 years old. Next year she would have to go to school, and it was just this danger of school, because she had a lot of problems because of her ADHD in school. She was always late. She had to do the tests. She could never finish the tests, and it was just an awful experience for her. Yeah. Oh, and at some point, she felt her pain again coming up, and the first time she could see where this pain comes from. Yeah, because before she never had an image, but now she saw that her father's foot is pushing down her neck, and she felt the pressure, that he was kind of like the reason that she felt so bad at school, and also just in life general, because he was a really choleric father and really pushy and really criticizing her a lot. But she could never do this connection, because she was so protective of her parents. She could never be angry at them, and this was the first time she could be really angry, especially at her father. And I think that's also a big part for Gestalt therapy. You have to go through these emotions first. Yeah, you can't just be, oh, my father is okay. That would be spiritual bypassing. Yeah, you have to go through this difficult emotion. You have to be angry at some point with your parents, and just then you can maybe come clean with these things. So we did these imagination journeys. Like I said, the older brother came, and the first time she felt this anger, and then she has some kind of synesthesia also, yeah, not only during this experience but in general. And she could see her mother as this blue cloud-like shape, and it was just icy, yeah, it was just cold, and her father as this red cloud and this angry father. This therapy took 8.5 hours, so it was quite long for MDMA, yeah. And usually MDMA, maybe you have a trip for maybe 4 hours or so, but she was in it for 8.5 hours, so yeah, it was a really long day, yeah. So, and then the integration, right? I will list some things that we just offer for her, and then I will go into detail what she did. So a therapy session one day after, therapy sessions on a weekly basis, and the physician was always accessible by phone. She also had the possibility to attend integration circles, journaling, drawing, and also re-experiencing parts of the journey through the music we played. And so implementation in the daily life. So she was really, I think, brave. She talked to her father, after this, and kind of learned how to protect herself from her father, also during this conversation. And she also talked to her brother, and her brother now has a more active role in her life and kind of supports her with a lot of bureaucratic things because of her ADHD. She has so difficulties to handle these things. And also, she had a really negative view on herself and low self-worth, and because of school, because she was never good enough. And I think she somehow found out that this strict voice in her head was her father's voice and could be more gentle with herself. And we waited half a year till the next session, so she had a lot to integrate. And then we did the second MDMA session. I call it the garden. What color of sheets did we put down there? Green sheets, yes. It's amazing how she was influenced by this. And now she was back again when she was about 14 years old, and she saw her grandmother in her garden, and she found out that this grandmother was the only person who understood her, who was supporting her, who kind of understood her ADHD and her hypersensitivity, and she really found this resource in herself that was really, really great to see. And then she remembered a situation with her friend where she had to listen to him, and usually she's really adapted to these situations and doesn't want to talk too much, and that's why she's always exhausted after these social interactions, but she's exhausted because she can't be herself in these social situations. She always kind of adapts to others. She's just a people pleaser, right? And then she realized why she didn't want to talk too much, because she had a part in herself that wanted to talk, that wanted to just talk a lot, talk loudly, but then she realized, she has an aunt that talks so much, so loudly, and she said to herself when she was little, she never wants to be like her aunt. And that's why she kind of suppressed herself. And but in this suppressing herself, she kind of wears herself out in these social situations. And during this MDMA session, she talked a lot. Usually with psychedelic-assisted therapy, you don't talk a lot, you just let the substance do its magic or work, but with her, we talked a lot. It was just different. And she talked loudly, she talked fast, and it felt really good for her. And then this angry father came back, like in a red cloud again. And so now we did the creative part that's really comes from Gestalt therapy. We built a blanket fort with her together, and in this blanket fort, she felt really safe from her father, and that was really, really healing for herself, that she could kind of be empowered to protect herself. And then this angry part came out of her, and so she, as a client, she's really shy and inhibited to do a lot of like the typical Gestalt therapy techniques, like talking to someone in a chair, doing role play, but she never wanted to do these things because it was not for her in a way. But on MDMA, it was possible, and this anger came up, and she felt really angry, and then she grabbed the pillow and looked at us. And we knew, okay, you want to throw this pillow, right? But she was still inhibited. She told us, I might need more MDMA for that. So we just went out of the room, so she wasn't really observed, and then she could really scream and kind of throw this pillow around, and yeah, that was quite a big step for her. And that was also incredible. In the end, we did sing together, and that really, I mean, she was really shy and also inhibited to do that, but we played some music and we kind of started to sing. My friend and I started to sing, and then at some point she also sang with us, yeah, and that was so amazing to see that she wasn't too shy, or that she didn't, she wasn't embarrassed about herself. So that part was really good regarding her social anxiety. Yeah, okay. This session also took nearly 8 hours, so quite long. So what did she do for integration? She did a lot of social experiments, trying to be more herself in these social situations. She tried to let her inner aunt come out more often. And she was in general lighter, funnier, and taking life not that seriously anymore. And she felt less pain, especially through these social experiments. And she did some drawing, and then we waited about 4 months till we did the third MDMA session. And this one was called The Body. And this time we put blue and green sheets there to kind of combine these two. And but this experience was just totally different. She didn't have a lot of, let's say, experiences with her parents anymore, but more with her body. And she, at first she was starting to shake, yeah, and she was kind of afraid, what's going on? Why am I shaking? But we tried to encourage her to let the shaking just be to shake, right? Similar to this TRE, this tension and trauma release exercise, this trauma therapy technique. We just let her shake, and then she had this image of, wow, I'm just grateful for my body, because when in her past, when she had this eating disorder, she just didn't take care of her body that well, and she was really sorry for that. And she really found peace with her body. And then at some point, her boyfriend came up as an inner image, and she saw how many resources she has in life. And at some point, she really could say, I'm good enough, I'm okay, and I live here in the here and now. And then there was this cat incident. At some point, a cat came into the room, in the therapy room, and we were, okay, I don't know if that's good or not. And we asked her, should we put the cat outside again? And at first she said, oh no, I'm not allergic, so it's okay. And then we waited a couple of seconds, and then she managed to say to us, to be honest, I don't want the cat inside here. And that was so difficult for her to say that as this people-pleasing person, but she was really able to tell us that, and we were grateful for that. And then this was this ball of anger and sadness. Till the end, we couldn't really figure out what that meant. Yeah, so a lot of times in psychedelic-assisted therapy, sometimes you just can't figure out what it really means. Right? So, okay. I will finish shortly. So the integration of this third journey, just simple. She started to take more good care of her body, and this acceptance of her body just endured. And she kind of built symbols for her close relatives. Also, she started to wear a necklace that reminded her of her grandmother, and that helped her to kind of integrate all these experiences she had. So I will come to an end now. I will skip these things, also the touch, but maybe we can talk about it afterwards. I only want to show you one thing. So if you're interested in doing the Gestalt Therapy training, I can really recommend the IGW. It's the Gestalt Therapy Institute in Switzerland. It's in German though, so if you maybe already finished your master's and are looking for psychotherapy training, there's the cohort who's starting in January still has open spaces. So yeah, but they do a training every year. So yeah, would be cool to maybe see you in this Gestalt community, because for me, this Gestalt therapy training, these 4 years were really life-changing for me, especially the 2 weeks workshops where we go out into the mountains and do 2 weeks really intense workshops. It's like a psychedelics experience. So yeah, I can really recommend the IGW Schweiz. Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Stephan. As always, we'll now be taking your questions. So just raise your hand and we'll come to you with a microphone.
Thank you for the talk. I wonder if you, in part of the training of the Gestalt aspect, but also in combination to psychedelics, I mean, you mentioned Fritz Perl as the founder of Gestalt Therapy, and but I didn't hear anything about Claudio Naranjo, which is a major figure who worked with Perls and developed, actually, who was one of the pioneers in the use of MDMA in psychotherapy and ayahuasca and other substances. So, and
Yeah.
he also developed a program that basically touched on various aspects of Gestalt therapy, like using theater, using music, using meditation, and also other tools like the Enneagram and such. So I wonder if you are acquainted with the Claudio and basically share what you know with the audience.
Yeah, great that you mentioned him. To be honest, I don't know a lot about him, but you're correct, he's the figure that combined Gestalt therapy with psychedelics, because he also used psychedelics in his therapies, right? And but I can't tell you a lot about him. I bought a book recently about him, about his life, but I didn't have time to read it yet. I wanted to also include him somehow into this presentation, to be honest, but I didn't really know how I wanted to include him. Yeah, but I think he's from Chile, right? Yes, and he also trained with Fritz Perls and also in Esselen. So yeah, I can really recommend looking him up, especially when you want to learn more about psychedelics and Gestalt therapy. But to be honest, I don't really know a lot about him, but thank you for bringing him up. Yeah.
Thank you. You have quite a big toolkit to be using on the patients, right? So I was wondering, how do you decide on which kind of move you're gonna do the next, and when to stay away? And do you just go by gut feeling, or do you also kind of train this in the course when you learn Gestalt therapy? And yeah, how do you go about it? I guess it's also quite experimental. Yeah.
Yeah. So you learn a lot about these things through the training, right? And Gestalt therapists also, they work with transference and countertransference. they see the therapist as an instrument or kind of like a tool, right? And I often try to look at how I'm feeling at the moment, what I feel and what my sensations are, and through this kind of like I'm like like this instrument, this resonance body. I try to maybe do an experiment or go through a route, because oftentimes, sometimes there are clients who really like to talk about how bad they're feeling, and sometimes you can't really feel this empathy towards them, right? And then you okay, why don't I feel empathy? I mean, they talk about all these awful things, right? And that's a really big information. And I always try to look at these things. So, why don't I feel empathy? And then I realize, okay, maybe this has something to do with trauma. Maybe this has something to do with this vulnerable state it's in, or this maybe state of what do I wanted to say? So the body, these sensations are a really big tool, and if you maybe don't feel this empathy, you do something maybe more confrontative, right? And try to confront them. Oh, okay. Somehow I feel tired, when you tell me that. That's really confrontative, right? You can't do this in the first session, of course, but if there's a therapeutic alliance, you can try these things out, and it can be really, really helpful, Thank you.
Thank you.
This one? Yeah, okay. Oh. It's not on, or?
I suppose, in principle, the therapists themselves do not take the medicine, and I could imagine in some places they might. And I'm wondering, from your personal experience, do you think, theoretically, of course, if you took the medicine yourself, would this support your effectiveness as a therapist, or do you think it could interfere?
That's a really good question, I think, and so we usually don't take the medicine, right? And there's a good reason for it. If something bad happens, you may need to call an ambulance, or you need to be just cognitively there, right? But I can see why, like, shamans also take ayahuasca with their clients, let's say, and sometimes, there's maybe you can kind of empathize better with these clients on a psychedelic, right? But it can also be, I think there's also danger of this ego inflation, when you also take this psychedelics, you may have this feeling of, oh, I know everything, what's happening inside of this person, but that's probably not true, right? So I really would be cautious, with these things. So it's a double-edged sword, I would say.
So what is your idea about body work? There is a big discussion about between those who say you shouldn't touch or merely shouldn't touch, and those who really do body work in the sessions.
That's quite a big discussion right now. And okay, I'll show you one thing. So wait. I did a training with Janice Phelps. Thank you, Helena, for this setting up this training. And I really liked her approach. And I think touch is important for psychedelic-assisted therapy, but you can do it really, really carefully. And just kind of prepare a client or a patient before you do the psychedelic-assisted therapy and just ask the client, okay, do you want to ask me before I touch you? Do you, or should I be the one to ask you before I touch you? Or should I just use my clinical judgment and just touch you? Or do you don't want touch at all? So discuss these things with the client. And also discuss the situation. Oh, you told me you don't want any touch during the session. And now what should I do when you want touch during the session, when you change your mind, right? And to just kind of discuss all these different ways to go. And yeah, you can look Janice Phelps up. I think she did. I think she also published a paper on this, when I'm correct. So yeah, I really like her approach. I think it's quite cautious, but it still involves the use of touch.
I have a question as well. Sorry, I don't know if this one was finished.
I think so. Yeah.
It's a little different topic. I wanted to ask about your integration circles. If it's possible to find any information about them or join them.
Yes, I usually put them on Meetup. Maybe you know the website, and there's this community called the Zurich Psychonauts, and I put them there regularly. And there's also a Telegram chat if you want to join. Yes, I can invite you as well. Yeah, they happen once per month at every third Thursday, I think, in the month. Yeah, so yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, if we don't have any further questions, we come to the very last part of today. First of all, with Christmas coming up and this being our last talk, it's all about saying thank you. First of all to you, obviously. Stephan, that was a great talk. We also have a gift for you, I think. We do, because we are well organized.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, merci.
And apart from that, because it's the last talk of the semester and because the semester is coming to an end, we also say goodbye to 3 very important people to our association who we desperately want to say thank you to. First of all, Mercan, she's not here sadly, but she did an amazing job at our organization. She was heavily involved in organizing these talks, and most importantly, she pretty much single-handedly got us established as a research organization also at the ETH, which obviously is very prestigious and looks good on our website. So huge thanks to Mercan. Then the second person is Robin, the one you heard introduce Stephan before. He did amazing work, again, as in our cooperation team, arranging all these talks. He arranged a talk with Stephan today, which you all got the pleasure to be witness of. But again, also beyond that, he started our very own integration circle, probably somewhat inspired by Stephan, I guess, which must have been an amazing experience and a cool experience. And I can also assure you that we will be we'll keep doing those. So thanks a lot for that, Robin. And then thirdly, we also want to, you get a chance to applause later. We'll get all 3 of them up. And thirdly, we want to thank Joel, who was our design genius, basically, because before him, our designs looked like this. And so you can see how adding Joel to the team was quite the improvement. Pretty much everything you saw from us on any flyer, on any screen, on any poster, he designed all by himself. And I mean, just look at that work. It looks all absolutely amazing. So please, the 2 of you, again, sadly, Mercan isn't here. Please come up, get your round of applause that you well deserved.
We also have some gifts for you. And yeah, we wish you all the best. We hope to see you around, of course. And then, of course, we want to thank you who have been part of this incredible journey. We wouldn't be so motivated to do these talks if it weren't for such a big audience being interested in these events. And so, big applause for you, yourself. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah. And if you want to connect with us any further, if you think what we're doing is amazing and you want to contribute and you see, oh, we're losing people, maybe we should add some more, you can connect with us on Instagram or on our website. Just DM us if you want to help in this organization, or just if you have some random question. Yeah, that's it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the support during the semester. Now you get to connect further at the upper row.
Sehr schön.